RINFONE. The other day, my girlfriend, who is an antique lover, and I decided to visit antique stores and recycle stores. I also like old video game software and old clothes, and have collected some bargain nest software and old clothes. Although the types of things we bought were different, we both enjoyed going around the stores that sold such things. We were both able to buy a few bargains, and as we drove along, we saw an old store. Whoa! Surprisingly, rare game software can be found in such a deserted store. With her staring at me with cold eyes, I walked into the store. It was a small store, about the size of a convenience store, with mostly used books and not much in the way of furniture or used clothing. There was only one Nest software on the shelf, gathering dust. I was about to call out to her, "Shall we go home?" when she let out a surprised squeal. I ran over to her and found her standing in front of a basket of stuffed animals and figures. "Did you find any bargains?" "These are amazing." With that, she picked up an icosahedral figurine that had been shoved to the bottom of the basket, among the stuffed animals and other figurines. Looking back, I wondered why I could see the object at the bottom of the basket case, which was supposed to be invisible from the outside, but perhaps the mysterious event had already started here. What could this be? Do you know what this is? No, I've never seen it before. I think I'll buy this ornament. I see, indeed, this ornament with its indescribably calm color might not be bad as an object. I said, "If it's cheap, why don't you buy it?" And took the icosahedral to the cashier. When I took the icosahedral to the cashier, a shabby old man was sitting there reading an old book. "Excuse me, how much is this?" I didn't miss the expression on his face when he looked up from the book and saw the icosahedral. For a moment, the expression on his face could only be described as surprise, but it quickly became that of a normal old man. "I don't know how much this is worth, but I guess it's worth it. Would you mind waiting a moment?" With that, he walked into the back room of his house. I could hear him arguing with an old woman who I assumed was his wife. Eventually, the old man produced a yellowed piece of paper. "This is one of the so-called toys, called RINFONE. And this instruction manual has detailed information about it. It seems to be very old." On the paper, there was a picture of an icosahedral with the word RINFONE written on it, and how it transforms from a bear to a hawk to a fish. It was accompanied by some words that I couldn't understand. The old man told me that it was written in Latin and English. The figurine can be transformed into various animals, like this. First, wrap RINFONE in your hands and stroke it around like you're holding a rice ball. She did as she was told, wrapping the RINFONE in her hands and stroking it as if she were holding it. Then she heard a click, and one of the faces of the icosahedral rose up. Wow! That's amazing. Try turning the protruding object and pulling it upward. When she did as the old man told her, another part of the RINFONE's surface caved in. Wow! It's like a puzzle. Why don't you try it too? It's very difficult to explain how this works in words, but have you ever heard of a toy called Transformers? Cassette tapes transform into robots, pistols and trucks transform into robots, you get the idea. Imagine this RINFONE transforming into a bear, a hawk, a fish, or any other animal by pushing or turning any part of the icosahedral. She was already very interested in the RINFONE. Even I thought it was a great toy. How much does it cost?" she asked timidly. "It's pretty old. But we forgot we even had it. Okay. How about a special price of 10,000 yen? If you put it on the internet, people who like it will buy it for hundreds of thousands of yen. She's a good bargainer. In the end, she got the price down to 6,500 yen and left the store with a happy face. The next day was Monday, so we both went home right after we finished eating dinner together at the restaurant. And Monday. When I arrived home after work, I got a call from her. She said, "RINFONE is amazing. It's really like a puzzle, and it turns into the shape of an animal. I couldn't stop thinking about it while I was working. It's really more fun than a bad video game." She was talking excitedly to me. After I hung up the phone, I received a photo mail. I could see her hands holding RINFONE, and I could see a bare head-like object and 2 legs sticking out of RINFONE. I was impressed with the workmanship, sent her an email with my impressions, and eventually went to bed that day. Tuesday. I'm driving home from work when I got a text from her. It's really interesting. I was up all night last night playing around with RINFONE and finally made a bear. Please come and see it. I chuckled and turned the car towards her house. Hey, you said you were up all night. Did you go to work? I asked her as we arrived at her house. She said, yes. I did, but I drank so much coffee that I felt sick. On the table was RINFONE, in the shape of a bear, with 4 legs and a slightly raised head. Oh, isn't this seriously awesome? I wonder how it works. Isn't it great? It's really fun. This bear is supposed to turn into a hawk next. I'm thinking of doing it right away. Hey, don't stay up all night today. You can do it tomorrow. That's a good idea. We ate a simple home-cooked meal together and stayed at her house that night. By the way, I forgot to mention that RINFONE is roughly the size of a softball. Wednesday. On my way home from work, I texted her this time. Did you sleep well? She replied, I slept fine last night. Now I'm going home and looking forward to the rest of RINFONE. It was about 11 o'clock at night. While I was absorbed in my PlayStation 2, I got a text message from her. The hawk is ready. It's really realistic. Whoever made this is a genius, right? When I opened the email, I found a RINFONE in the shape of a hawk with its wings spread. Even to me, an amateur, it was an elaborate creation. There was a hawk that looked like it was about to flap its wings. Of course, it was a toy and it was uneven to some extent. But still, it was well made. Wow, all that's left is the fish. But don't get too carried away. Take your time. I replied, and eventually fell asleep. Thursday night. As I got out of the bath, my phone rang. It was her. Did you call me earlier? No, I didn't. What's up? She said, about 5 minutes ago, I started getting calls every 30 seconds or so. When I press the call button, it sounds like a lot of people talking, like the noise of a crowded city, and then it hangs up. If you look at the incoming call, you'll usually see something like, number displayed, or blocked, or public, right? But on the display of the incoming call, it says far away. I didn't even register this. It's creepy. Well, should I go to your house? No, I'm turning it off and going to bed. Okay, well, maybe it's some kind of mixed signal. Oh, by the way, what happened to RINFONE? Did it turn into a fish? Yeah, it's almost ready. I'll lend it to you when it's done. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Friday. I was also curious about the strange phone call, so I called my girlfriend and we decided to go to her house. The RINFONE was almost in the shape of a fish, and looked like it would be complete once I added the dorsal and tail fins. I said, "Did you get another weird call at lunch?" "Yes." I was eating bread during my lunch break when my phone rang, so I answered. This time it was a normal, blocked number, so I picked it up. When I pressed the call button, I heard a lot of male and female voices saying, "Let me out." And then the call was cut off immediately. I wonder if it's a busy line or a prank? Do you want to go to the cell phone store with me tomorrow? Yeah, let's do that. After that, we talked about how RINFONE is really a great toy and I played around with it to finish the fish, but I couldn't figure out how to make the tail and dorsal fins. We were struggling to figure out how to make the tail and dorsal fins, saying to each other, maybe they made it difficult because it was the last thing to do. Eventually, I started to feel sleepy, so I decided to stay at her house, since the next day was Saturday and I had brought a change of clothes. I had a bad dream in this night. Many naked men and women were crawling up from the bottom of a dark valley. I climbed up the cliff and ran for my life. I'm almost there. I'm almost at the top. I would be saved. Just as I reach the top, a woman catches me by the leg.
Take me with you.
I woke up drenched in sweat. It was only a little after 5 a.m. I couldn't seem to sleep again, so in a daze, I lay down on the futon until she woke up.
Saturday.
I went to the cell phone store, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then, as we were talking, we decided to have a fortune-telling session for a change. There is a fortune-telling lady called Auntie Cat who is famous in the city for her accurate predictions. She has a number of cats at home and does her fortune-telling at home. However, when I called her to make an appointment, I was lucky enough to get one on the following Sunday. That day we did some random shopping and went home.
Sunday.
We arrived at Aunt Cat's house in the early afternoon. I pressed the doorbell. Yes? I said, I made a reservation for 1 p.m. It's open. Come in. When we opened the door, there was a cat in the hallway. When it saw us, it yelled threateningly and ran away to the back. We went down the hallway and found Aunt Cat in the western room. She was literally surrounded by cats. The moment we entered, they all yelled at once, as if they were enemies of their parents, and they scattered and ran away. It was a bad feeling. As she and I looked at each other as if we were in trouble, the lady said, "I'm sorry, but please leave." I was a little pissed off and asked her what she meant. The reason why I have so many cats is because I am sensitive to such things. And they help me sort out good people from bad people. I've never had a reaction like this before. For some reason, I had a flash of inspiration and told the lady about strange phone call to my girlfriend and the nightmare I had. She said, behind her, "I see something that looks like an animal object. Throw it away now." She replied reluctantly. When I asked her what was wrong with it, she turned away and said, "Please leave. I don't want to say or see anything else." She, too, was beginning to pale. I persisted and asked her, what was that all about? Is it cursed, or is it something that often happens in antiques? I kept asking again and again until the lady answered. Then she stood up and said, "That's a condensed, minuscule size of hell. Those are the gates of hell, throw them out. And go home." How much is your bill today? You don't have to pay for it. Just go home. The screaming aunt's face at this point scared me more than anything. When we returned to her house that day, we immediately wrapped the RINFONE and the yellowed instruction manual in newspaper, wrapped them with duct tape, and threw them in the garbage. A few weeks later, when I went to her house, she, who also liked anagrams, took a piece of paper and a pen and started saying, "You know. The spelling of RINFONE may be a coincidence or a complication, but if you rearrange it, it can also be read as Inferno." Well, no way, just a coincidence. She said, "What would have happened if I had finished it?" I could only laugh dryly. I was subconsciously praying that it was being disposed of in the landfill and that there would not be a second one. Thanks for watching this video. How did you like this story? If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. If you have any feedback on this video, please leave me a comment down below. I'll see you in the next video.